And welcome, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. I am a public relations and marketing professional who happens to have a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, we're going to have a conversation with Dr. Kimberly Hardy. She is a Democratic congressional candidate for District 7 in North Carolina. District 7 makes up a very red region in North Carolina, and its current congressman, David Rouser, really flies under the radar. He truly does. He just quietly votes and approves literally everything President Trump dictates without any pushback. And we never hear from him. And even though living in North Carolina, I'm not in his district, you never hear anything about him. Never, ever. He's like a ghost. But Dr. Kimberly Hardy has had enough. And she is in the fight for our democracy, affordability, education, and healthcare for all Americans, and particularly, of course, for her District 7 in North Carolina. She is a social worker, a mom, a professor of social work at Fayetteville State University. She has spent her career, as social workers do, building bridges to equip people with the tools and opportunities they need to be successful. She is ready, willing, and able to use her skill sets to better the lives of her constituents in District 7 here in North Carolina. She's ready to turn her district blue. Welcome back to the show, future Congresswoman Dr. Kimberly Hardy.
I receive it and I appreciate you for having me back, Pam. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And here is one of your sorors, Pam Evans.
It's all right. My political poodles, as I like to say.
Yes, absolutely. So, listen, first off, I'd like for you to share with us two things: your family background. You come from a family of public servants and military. And I'd like to know about that and how that has shaped you.
I love when people ask me about this because it gives me a chance to talk about the roots of what got me to this space, right? So all of the men in my family are veterans. My younger brother and my father are Marines, and I always say it in the present tense because once a Marine, always a Marine. And then my older brother was in the 82nd, and so not only is this like a foundation for me in terms of service and what it means to take care of the people here home and abroad in that sort of broader military family sense. It's really personal because like I said, my brother was in the 82nd. I am in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where we're about to have a deployment for the 82nd Airborne and for this war in Iran. And so, this impacts the people that I live around. This impacts the people who are on my campus as students, either the service member themselves or their family members. And so when we talk about service and military, that's not far off and distant for me. That is, part and parcel of who I am. And they all volunteered for this, right? And so, and that's what you want. You want people who want to say, I will stand and defend this nation and our allies abroad, but you don't want them to just be rushed out, willy-nilly for something that no one in the administration can help explain. So, but I did grow up seeing service in a different way as well, because both of my parents were in law enforcement. My father was a retired DC police officer, and my mom was a federal agent with the First Department of the Interior in the State Department. And so, so I've always seen what it looks like to serve in a public service way. And so my version of doing that has been social work, which sometimes feels just as tumultuous and scary because you're having to deal with so many serious issues, but it's been really impactful to use my social work background to inform my political aspirations, because I know what happens at your house based on decisions that are made at the White House. And so I know exactly what that looks like on the ground in a bunch of different ways. So that all of that has helped shape who I am and how I enter into this political space.
Right, right. So tell us, Dr. Hardy, how tell us about your district, because as we were talking earlier, most people what they know about North Carolina is what they see in the ads. They know the Triangle region, Research Triangle Park. They know to say Raleigh Durham, and they know Charlotte, but they don't know that North Carolina is a very diverse state. Other than the beaches and the mountains, there's a whole bunch of farms and rural lands and what have you. So tell us what makes it unique for your district. What makes up your district?
So for anyone watching from outside of North Carolina, please let me start by making a thing very clear. Raleigh Durham is two separate places, okay? Raleigh Durham is an airport. So, but we often get people who go, "Oh, I visited Raleigh Durham." I'm like, that's not what you did, but okay. And so, but that's just a fun tease about that. But Raleigh and Durham are two totally different places, right? They're close, but they're not the same. But our district, yes, is very, very different. District 7. So first of all, North Carolina is the second most rural state in the country. And precisely because of what you said in terms of like the way it's marketed and the way people know it, they don't expect that at all. They think it's like Texas and straight up North Dakota, South Dakota. We are actually the second most rural state in the country, which means we have a lot of farmers here. And so and my district in particular is a very interesting tale of two sides of the same coin. So there's a great deal of wealth here. Brunswick County and New Hanover County in particular are seeing a major influx of retirees who are coming down from New England, New York, New Jersey, just the upper Northeast region, for all the reasons that you would come down here to live on the coast, right? As a retiree, your money goes farther here. It's milder summers, it's milder winters. Everything is so much better here. But they're coming down, and they're coming down from bluer spaces, which, by the way, is another thing that's changing the dynamic of our district. So it's not as cobalt as scarlet red anymore. It's not quite cobalt blue either. But it is definitely trending bluer because of the folks that are moving into this region. So you have the beaches, and you have folks with immense wealth down here, but you also have folks who are really struggling financially. So you hate to name counties and sort of put them in that space, but if we're just looking at like economic indicators, then a Bladen County, a Sampson County, a Robeson County, a Columbus County, all of those are also in the district, and they do tend to struggle a lot more economically. And so being a representative of this district means needing to know how to talk to people who are in, high environment spaces and rural spaces, urban and agrarian, wealth and less wealth. You have to be able to, but you can't do any of that if you don't actually show up for people and talk to them, which is the thing that makes me different from my opponent.
Okay. So, Dr. Hardy, what does fighting for Southeastern North Carolina look like in terms of policy for you?
So some of the policies that let's look at the. I like to just call it HR1. I hate calling it the one big beautiful bill because it's not
beautiful.
It's not beautiful. It is absolutely thing. Yeah, it is a horrifying piece of legislation because it harms so many people, and it harms some people in ways that they aren't really expecting. But the bigger sort of broader response to that is policies that help strengthen the social safety net and get costs back in check for folks. And we haven't had that in a really long time, to be honest. Even before HR1, their prices were still not great. People were still having a hard time affording life, but that's only been exacerbated by HR1 and this administration writ large. So it's about advocating for things like, putting the restoration of the subsidies for the ACA, for example. Some people who were on the Affordable Care Act have seen their subsidies double. And what kind of nerdy research professor would I be if I didn't have data, right? So I will tell you that for a 60-year-old, right? I made notes because I was hoping you'd ask me about this. For a 40-year-old, rather, making $31,000 in this district, if they have the silver premium plan for the Affordable Care Up, their insurance premiums went up 165%.
Mm.
So it went up from $581 a month to $1,667.
How could they even afford 500 and something a month? Make 31.
First of all, right. First of all, and see that's the thing, right? Because there's the Affordable Care Act for the folks who make, just a little too much to actually afford Medicaid, but not enough to really cover the cost of a health insurance plan that they can pay out of pocket for private insurance without those subsidies. And so the Affordable Care Act is still there. The subsidies are the problem. And it's a real issue for people and let's go to 60-year-olds. Like I said, we have some folks moving down here who are older, who are retirees, and they're coming with some measure of wealth most of the time. But for a lot of folks just who live here right now, for a 60-year-old couple making $82,000 in this district as their salary, their silver premium increase was 287%.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just, excuse me, I meant theirs was the ones that was $581. The 40-year-old had $58 a month, and now it's gone up to $95 a month. So my apologies.
Okay.
But still, $581 a month is still high. And now it goes up 287%. I'm a 60-year-old. We know that aging in this country, aging anywhere, is expensive.
Yeah.
But it's, increased health issues, increased visits to doctor's appointments. Does not to say anything for whatever emergency care you might need. And so these things are costs that erode an already strained budget. And it's not because we don't have the capacity to restore the premiums to something or just make them better anyway.
Right.
It's the lack of will.
The lack of will. Yeah. The sheer lack of will.
And compassion.
Yes.
I as you mentioned earlier, I'm a social worker. We operate from the code of ethics.
And happy Social Work Month, by the way.
Well, thank you. And happy Women's History Month to you.
Thank you.
To all of us, right?
Yes.
I'm rocking my pink on purpose just for that, as we get ready to wrap this month up. But our code of ethics has 6 core values in it. And my favorite one, I just talked about this at the No Kings rally here yesterday, is the dignity and worth of the person. And the restoration of these subsidies or making them even better so that the cost is even less. That is evidence of people's worth in our mind, right? If you want to see how much someone is valued, look at what policies we're making, look at what funds we're allocating to this. The war in Iran is costing us nearly $1 billion a day, and yet we can't pay for folks to afford health care who are already struggling to make ends meet. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's a lack of compassion. And it means that folks can't get sick and restored to care and health with dignity.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what this is sure damn meanness, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you've emphasized raising wages. And so what federal policies would you support to make that happen for your constituents in North Carolina?
We have got to make it is ridiculous that we are still looking at a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour.
When did we enact that? When did that happen?
It hasn't gone up to $7.25 since my son was 1 and he's 18 now.
It's been about 20 years at least.
Exactly. And that's an up. That's an increase to $7.25. That's insane. Nobody can take care of themselves, much less a family, on $7.25 an hour. And I reject the notion that we should have a minimum wage, because the way I hear that is, what's the least amount of money I can give you and not get in trouble for that, right? And if you're a waitress, I remember in undergrad, I used to wait tables. I made $2.13 an hour plus tips.
Right.
And that's what it is today. And there are people who are trying to take care of themselves on this little bit of money. My son got his first job at a local burger restaurant, and he makes $10 an hour. And even he said, it's not enough money for all the work that I have to do. And when the war in Iran hit, his little itty bitty budget, where he had set aside $25 for gas, has gone up to $35, sometimes $40 to fill up his gas tank now. And so if you're talking about spending more on gas to get back and forth to work for a
Right.
job that barely pays you anything anyway, I don't know what the goal is of this administration. Is it destitution? Is that the end goal
Yes.
for all of us? So pushing for a living wage that allows people to make to meet all of their needs and at least most of their wants, right? Because these
Mhm.
costs are out of control right now. They
They
went up because of his tariffs. They went up because of this war in Iran.
Mhm.
God only knows what's going to happen between now and the time that we take back Congress in January of 27. So it's about pushing for and fighting for an increase in the wages. I've seen data that say in order to get to a living wage, we'd have to raise it somewhere between $20 to $25 an hour for the
Mhm.
jobs that are right now $7.25 an hour. And so now you have folks who don't want to pay that because it cuts into their corporate profits. But I would argue that you don't get to make corporate profits without the labor of the people who are working on the front line at whatever your store is. And so
Jeff
if we
Bezos,
I'm looking at you, Amazon, right? And I'm looking at you, so many like Fortune 500 companies.
Walmart.
Walmart. I mean, we could name names all day, and because it's pervasive. And so when you have folks who are just trying to live, there are people want to work. There is
Yes.
dignity in work.
Yes.
There is dignity in being able to say, I earned this income and I can do these things with that income. Nobody is, despite what they want everybody to believe, there's not some huge population of people looking for a handout. I have gone all over this state as second vice chair of the state Democratic Party and
Mhm.
all over my district. And what I know is nobody is looking for perfect. They are looking for opportunity. They are looking for access and, to get the things that make a life worth living. And I really worry about the mental anguish that is caused by people who are struggling economically and they're working harder than ever, and it's harder than ever to get ahead.
Right.
So so that's what it looks like, fighting for a livable wage that is data driven, by the way.
Mhm.
Again, nerdy research professor here, but we have to base these numbers, make decisions not on emotion or not on your political ideology. It has to be based on what do the data show is necessary for folks to earn so that they can actually live a solid and stable life, like every single member of Congress does.
Mhm. I want to show you what a brief video about some farmers here in North Carolina. I want to share that with you, and then I'll have another question for you. Okay. All right. Oh, wait. Uh-oh. Let's see. Can you see it? Is
I
it
can see your email that has the link in it.
okay?
Their own crops.
I got it.
See it?
Yes.
I've never seen prices jump to levels like they are now as fast as they've jumped.
We don't have any way to pass those additional costs on. And we're already looking at very small profits per acre on crops.
Diesel fuel.
I've never seen prices jump to levels like they are now as fast as they've jumped.
Diesel fuel, fertilizer. Mm-hmm.
Second, I'm having a hard time stopping that one. Okay, I got it. Whew, girl, I've had some difficulties with this whole StreamYard this time. Something happened with my Facebook thing, and that's my highest viewership. And I don't know what happened, but
Technology.
technology. Yeah, exactly. But I put that on. I found that today, and it was so. I thought, oh, this is perfect because these are your people. These are some of your people. And with that said, how would you bring about economic development to rural parts of District 7 and not just the cities like Fayetteville or Wilmington? Because those two, your district is really strange. That's
Yes,
part of
it
the
is.
gerrymandering.
Well, yeah, so to be fair, the district is strange. And yes, gerrymandering is one of the two things that North Carolina is better at than anyone else in the country, the second being barbecue. We're terrible about about the gerrymander. I was making sure you were still with me on that. I was like, is she still here? Yeah, she heard that. Okay. But it's true. The gerrymander doesn't help, but uh, the space is what it is, right? There's needed development regardless of how they draw the line. So from Cumberland to Wilmington over to Brunswick and back up, 8 counties. It is crazy, but all of those counties and their uniquenesses are going to exist regardless of how they draw those lines, right? And so so there is a need for economic development. And I mean, we're right here on the I-95 corridor. And so
Right.
there is an opportunity for development to happen in places like Robinson and Bladen and Sampson. There's spaces here for that economic development to happen, which is, I want to make sure we sort of somewhat disaggregate that, because we don't want farmers to feel like we're just going to come in and take over their farms
No,
and, that sort of thing. So we still need those farmers.
we
to
need
have
our
access to
farmers.
those price, the gas prices are just absolutely out of control. And I learned
Right.
something recently from a friend that I sort of personally call Farmer Amy. She was a peanut farmer up in upstate New York, but has moved, since down here to Wilmington. And she was talking to me about the fuel prices and the fertilizer costs, and how the way she was explaining it to how much these farmers are getting in debt related to all of these costs, even before the war in Iran set stuff up, the tariffs, things of that nature.
Really?
And I said, it basically sounds like they're sharecroppers, right? Because they are constantly in debt. And so, but right now what they're seeing is these prices going through the roof as a result, again, initially because of tariffs, but this war in Iran is significantly impactful. And that just has to stop. And so there's not a better answer to that than that just has to stop. I don't know, like most people, I don't know why we got in here. I have my own speculations as to why we got into this war, but none of us know why, because nobody in the administration will give us,
They don't know.
can give us a straight answer, but they won't. And so, but what we know is that it is costing us a ton of money. It is making life harder by raising prices for folks who are relying on imported goods like the diesel fuel, like the fertilizer. And these things have, costs and impacts to all of us down the line.
Yes.
If these folks can't get what they need to make their crops grow, then they can't send the food out, then they get, so nobody is sort of safe from the impact that this thing is having on farmers. So in that regard, that we just need to end that war. And
let me mention this. I saw something earlier today about the fertilizer situation, that some of the fertilizer that we use, we import a substance of it that is very critical. And because we have a global economy, we can't isolate people and do all of this foolish stuff that this old man with dementia thinks is possible with the tariffs and the this and the that. The world isn't like it's we're not separate from one another. We all are interdependent of one another.
That is why I refer to sort of the world, if you will, as the global community.
Yes.
Right? This is a community still, and there is a reason why there are things that there are little pots of riches, if you will, in all these different places around the country. And I believe that there's a reason why everything is not all in one country. It's because we're supposed to work with each other, right? And so our global partners are just that, they're partners. But now, like if we talk about soybeans,
yeah. Oh God.
right? And
We
so
lost that.
And I think that when China goes off and finds, soybean farmers in other spaces that are willing to say, I can grow that here, I can, meet that demand. What is their motivation to come back to us, at least until Trump is out of office? What is their motivation to come back? And now you're asking for farmers here in this country who grow soybeans to switch crops now? I mean, I'm not I'm not a farmer. And so I don't know what the realities look like of saying, okay, well, I'll just till this land to create something totally new. But if you used to export this huge, lucrative, and important commodity, and now through no fault of your own, that's gone off to some competition somewhere else globally, and you don't have any reason to believe that maybe that would be coming back. That's what we're facing right now. That's what these farmers are facing right now.
Yes.
And so, there is an opportunity for us to fix some of this stuff even before Trump is out of office, which is to win back Congress, both the House and the Senate, because we're the only ones who can be switched out right now in the midterms so that we can actually do something. We can't switch out the Supreme Court, which has all but abdicated responsibility for keeping him in check, to the point where when they actually do say something is unconstitutional, like the terrorists were like,
right.
What?
I know. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
It's crazy. So
it's
if
crazy.
we want to stop it sooner rather than later,
Mm-hmm.
then we have to do that. We have to do that in November.
Yeah. Zachary made a comment about what we were talking about before. You make money because many of these companies' employees are subsidized by welfare. And that is a fact, because unfortunately, the good chunk of the employees that work at Walmart, they also are getting SNAP benefits. I mean, make it make sense.
And then we're not even going to talk about how the ACA has made, HR1 has made life so much more difficult for folks who are receiving SNAP benefits. So now you have these crazy work requirements, that are far and away. And people are going to say, well, of course people should have to work. We just told you that people who work for one of the largest corporations in the country go to work and
every day,
every day. A lot of them don't even get a day off, and so
they don't get hours. You get sent home or whatever. Because remember when Walmart raised their wages? I never forget it. And we were like, oh, good. And honey, no sooner than they raised their wages, the lines were backed up out the door. And then they got the AI things that you had to go check your own self out with.
Exactly.
So make it make sense.
Make it make sense. And remember, before COVID, Walmart was open 24 hours a day. And so you had folks who were working that third shift deep into the night, but still, and getting home like first thing in the morning, probably taking care of a child and getting them off to school or whatever the case may be, and still needing access to SNAP benefits. Like that is absolutely unconscionable. And so we need to do something about holding these folks accountable. And there are ways to do that through policy and through regulation to ensure you can mandate the increase in the minimum wage. And sadly, what's going to happen is some folks are going to do what manufacturing has done and say, well, I'm just going to take my factory and leave. And then they leave all of these people unemployed, which means those individual homes are struggling. But now the funds that used to go out to the grocery store and the local diner and all that, those funds are gone now. Some people are going to leave. And I thought Trump said he was going to bring back manufacturing. I also thought he said that he was going to end the war in the Ukraine on the first day.
And on the first day.
I also think he said, like, we could do this all day with all the lies that he told. Every single thing Kamala Harris said was going to happen has happened so far, unfortunately. You hate to be right in this way, but she was right. And so there are ways that we can help our farmers, and some of that is about setting price caps on some of the fuel. There are some corporations that are responsible for these costs going up, separate and apart from what's going on in Iran. But we also have to end that war. We have to push for our folks to make a livable wage. And so that's federal legislation we can enact. there's a lot of things we can do. And in terms of economic development in some of these other spaces that are, again, separate and apart from the farming community, we need businesses to come down here. I mean, we're a perfect place to stay. For example, if you're going north to south on 95, you can stop in most of these counties, and there should be some sort of economic drivers there. But we don't have enough of them. You have some major corporations that don't want to come to spaces that don't have a large enough living residential population. I remember asking the mayor of Fayetteville a few years ago. I invited him to one of my classes, Mitch Colvin, and everyone was like, how come we can't get a cheesecake factory? Like my students are really obsessed with the cheesecake factory out here. And he said because they need 300,000 people in the population. At the time, we only had 250,000. And so it's hard to bring some of those companies and corporations in because they're not all bad. They just need to do better about, paying and taking care of their employees. I also think we need to talk about unions. We need to have union representation in this state.
And listen, I'm a homegirl from Detroit, so I'm all for unions.
You know what a good union
unions.
is.
I was looking, one of my friends posted on Facebook today some museum pictures she took at the Henry Ford Museum on her Facebook page, and it had a whole section dedicated to the union and their fight for civil rights. Unions, listen, the unions made things better. I mean, they did. Now, of course, in every organization, you get corruption, you get stuff. But by and large, there is so much good that you cannot take it away from them.
Exactly. And that's why they call it this, they always have a name for a thing that makes it sound better than it is. Oh, the SAVE Act is voter suppression. And so the right to work state that we are in North Carolina is you should have the right to work without being bullied by the union. And that's not what this is at all. And they just use it to scare people. And I think the corporations that don't want to offer union protection to their employees are ostensibly saying, I want to be able to take advantage of your labor in whatever way that I want. And you'll take it because what other choice do you have? And so, because if you were being a fair and honest broker, if you were being, because what if I told you could be a billionaire and still take care of the people that made that possible? Like what if I told you, right, that you could do, the two things could be true at the same time. So if we get union protections for the labor of this country right now, the labor of my state, because I must have been on my way from here to Brunswick County or here to New Hanover County, I pass the Smithfield plants. I pass a whole bunch of big, corporate companies and their factories, and they are going 24 hours a day. And all we're saying is let these folks come together to negotiate salaries and benefit packages that will, again, honor their labor and give them the dignity of the work that they do. And it won't harm you. In fact, you can see what happens when, we get together and say, we don't like your business practices, and so we're going to boycott. Ask Target how they're doing right now, right? And so, it's the same thing with other corporations. We can reward. Remember, everyone rewarded Costco for not walking back the DS. So be the company that says, hey, over here, we treat our people with dignity and respect, and we value them enough to give them a seat at the table. And we can reward that with our dollars, right? And so, I don't know. There's a bunch of different things we could do to improve the economics of this region.
Let's get into, the chat is jumping a little bit here.
Okay.
Zachary says, the question is, how do you get the Republicans, to stop voting for the acts against their own interests? That's a good one, Zach.
Zachary, that is my new favorite thing. I want that on a t-shirt. That is my new favorite thing. And I'll be honest, I have wondered aloud what it is that makes some of these folks vote continue, especially in the farming community. To be fair, David Rouser, his background is in farming and his degree from NC State is agriculture. And so he knows his area, which makes it even worse why he's not doing more to help the people.
And you don't hear from him. I wish if I had $1 for every soundbite, even a quarter, a smidgen of a press release that he's put out, I know the media would be in shock, local media, and they would blast it everywhere. But
Well, yeah.
he and Ted Budd in particular are so under the radar. You don't even know that they're are they still here? You know,
Exactly. And they fly under the radar. David wants you calling Trump's name. He wants you to be furious with Trump so that in 2028 you can take out your ire on him, but you don't come and talk to him about anything. But the fact of the matter is Trump has always been Trump. Yes, he might be older now. Yes, he might have this he might have mental health decline or whatever. And I hate, honestly, when people sort of make fun of that, because that is a thing that is real. And so, but what we know about Trump is that he was making terrible decisions long before any of this ever happened. The issue is Congress has decided to capitulate.
Yes.
You know? And so if David Rouser is going to let Trump get away with this, then the problem is not Trump being Trump as he's always been. Is the purse strings of Congress, or the co-equal branch of Congress, not doing their work to set him straight. And so he's got to go. David hasn't done this. I love to share this with people because it's absolutely indicative of where we are. And this is your treason act, Zachary. So I am getting back to that. David hasn't done a constituent facing event since 2017.
What?
He was in the town of Bolivia in Brunswick County, and he said then, I'm going to have a town hall every year. Hasn't done one since. No one has seen him since 2017. And mind you, so what's that, about 8 years or so ago, right? I launched the campaign in all 8 counties in 8 consecutive days, because it can be done. I work a full-time job. I'm still somebody's mom, and I still manage to get everywhere I can in this district. I have visited every single one of these counties numerous times. I've shown up for these people. It's not hard to do. There's actually funding in the congressional, in our congressmen and women's budget that allows them funds to travel back and forth to the district. So this isn't even an economic hardship for you, David, but he just won't show up. And he doesn't show up because the district, returning to our gerrymander piece for a second, is drawn to benefit a Republican.
Yeah.
But what he doesn't seem to realize, and Zachary, this is coming back to your tree and X question. The folks are tired of chopping down their own trees, right? I'm just going to see how long I can take this analogy into the ether. They're tired now. We received a notice on an email through our website from a woman in Brunswick County, and she said, quote, "Good luck, Dr. Hardy." She said, "My husband and I have been Republicans all our lives. We switched in 24. It is time to be accountable to your constituents, not to your president." I mean, like that. And that happens all the time. People who are registered unaffiliated are moving over to the left. And when you get in the ballot box, get to that ballot box in November, it's the general ballot. So you can vote for one or the other. And that stark contrast is real. It is either going to be him or it is going to be me. David has spent 10 years demonstrating that he does not care about the people of this district. He votes with Trump 100% of the time. He has the best performing stock portfolio of anyone in Congress.
He does?
So, yes, he does. And so y'all can go ahead and send David home. He'll be fine. David will be just fine, right? David has federally funded health care, right? Because he's a federal employee. But he's working and to take it away from you and celebrating HR 1, taking it away from you or making it harder for you to get, making it more expensive for you to get. What are you voting for? Right. And so and that's what I ask people, like, what are you voting for? If you're voting for your child to have access to a really good education, for your teachers to be well paid and not have to work a second job, for our, for Head Start programs to stay funded, for students to be eligible for Pell Grants and other forms of financial aid for college. If you're looking for those things and that's what you're voting for, I'll wait while you tell me what exactly David has done to make those things possible for you. I'll wait. We'll wait. David hasn't had a piece of legislation passed into law since the Obama administration, which, by the way, is a good thing because he keeps putting forward legislation to try and dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. So I'm glad that legislatively he has a terrible record because he would do more harm, right? But there are ways there that he is harming you, even if it's not explicit, it's implicit in letting Trump get away with what he's getting away with.
Everything. Let's
So-
let's get some more into this
Sure.
these chat. Sean Carter. Oh, I don't know who this is.
Oh, that's my friend Sean. Hi, Sean.
The ones that are leaving are national chains. What if the solution is regional or local business grants to copy what big chains do, with stipulations, of course?
I love that question. I have discovered that there is so much grant money available for folks through the SBA or the Small Business Association, right? And so there are entrepreneurs in our communities who cannot get access to the capital they need to get their businesses off the ground or to grow them. I would love to see far and away more local and regional businesses. I'm a big fan of Shop Local because this is folks who are your neighbors who are also shopkeepers, right? And so we should go and support them. Every one of these businesses that is huge now started out as a little tiny business in somebody's garage, in somebody's dorm room, Mark Zuckerberg. Like all of these things became what they are today because people had access to the resources to make that thing happen. I would love to see that happen more. We don't know who the next Amazon is. For the first 5 or 6 years, when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, it was losing money every year. So we have to put those funds in the hands of up and coming entrepreneurs and then support them. There is a brother who started an apparel company called Actively Black. And he was on with Roland Martin a couple of months ago, but I was just rewatching it earlier today. It's a clothing company. And he sort of rose to everybody's national attention when he talked about how the Ralph Lauren brand partnership, right? You've heard about this.
Yeah, because my daughter is a fashion designer and she has her own line as well. And I sent her that, and it was so amazing to me that a Black man created that aesthetic for Ralph Lauren. And we never knew that. And Ralph Lauren said, "Hey, I like it. I like it. You love it." People were buying it. And
here's the thing about that, though. So that Morehouse and Spelman collection, and then they had the Inkwell collection, the Martha's Vineyard collection. Those pieces sold for gargantuan amounts of money, and people never batted an eye. This young brother, whose name I'm blanking on, I'm so sorry. I promise I'm going to look it up. Or if anybody watching knows it, please put it in the chat with a link to that brother's site. He uses Black farmers who grow their own cotton. He pays them above what they would normally get. And he'll sell a T-shirt, and he said every day in his comments, they're like, "Why is this T-shirt $60?" He said, "But I use Black-owned everything. Like all the businesses that feed into my business are Black-owned folks. I am feeding Black families. I am giving back to Black communities." The amount of money, someone's going to say, "Well, Ralph Lauren's giving money back too." He does an excellent breakdown of how much money that ends up not being, that Ralph Lauren is giving back to HBCUs. And I mean, anything you're giving back to HBCUs, I'm a double alumna of an HBCU. I teach at one now. Yes, please give us all the resources. But if we're going to have small businesses who are trying to start up, do good, pay livable wages, utilize other small Black business owners, woman-owned, veteran-owned, whatever your thing is, we have to be able to support them. And he made the excellent point that some of those folks who are trying to get started, they don't have access to the capital in order to build those businesses. But there are grants through the Small Business Administration that would help us build up those small and regional businesses. So thanks, Sean.
Yeah. Zach, it comes up, and this is an excellent question. I hadn't even thought about this, Zach. How much APAC money do you think Rouser is getting?
I don't know, but our federal finance reports are public. So you can go and look at any candidate and look at how much money they're getting and exactly who they're getting it from. If you look at David's federal finance report, you are going to see so much corporate money, very few individuals supporting him. All of the donations I have received have come from people. And so, and we're not taking any corporate PAC money. So that question for me, if it was asking about me, would always be zero. We're not doing that. But his money comes largely from these large corporations and things of that nature.
Like which
And so
ones, Doc? Which
I know that he has received money from, I think he has actually taken APAC money. I wish I'd have known somebody was going to ask me that, because I would have had all my data for you on that.
That's
But I know
okay.
he's gotten money from Duke Energy. He's gotten money from big and from the Republican Party writ large.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so like the RNC and the, their version of the so the RCCC, like those funds, people send money to him like a lot. And so that's why he doesn't have to do the things that I do to raise money. And I want folks to understand that when I'm talking about raising money, I'm talking about how money equals messaging, right? These are dollars that you all give to our campaign so that we can reach the 156,000 people that we need in order to win this race, right? So for me, that's those yard signs that you see that pop up right before early voting. That's the mail pieces that you get and you look at for 2 seconds and then you throw it in your recycle bin. That all of those, the ads on television, all of those things cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Feeding the volunteers lunch that work at the polls, and all of that money comes from people as an investment into the campaign. And so I am beholden to the people of my district, to the people of the country, whoever gives me those dollars as individuals. David has to do the bidding of whatever corporation has, filled his coffers.
Yeah. Okay. They continue to vote for the acts is because they are not voting for their self-interest. They're voting for cultural identity, not policy, but whom they believe themselves to be. Absolutely.
That's factual.
Yeah.
I did actually have a person who was a Republican at an event, and he said, actually, it was like an outdoor festival type event, and he said, my granddaddy would roll over in my grave if he knew I was voting for a Democrat. And I'm like, listen, I don't want to ask you to do anything that would dishonor the legacy of your grandfather, but I am asking you to keep your grandchildren in mind when you go to the ballot box. This is not a left or right issue.
It's not.
This is a right or wrong
It's
issue.
not. It's absolutely not. So let's dive in a little bit about. It's so much to dive into.
Right?
It's so much. I have so much here and stuff. Because you're a social worker by training and in profession and the whole thing, how do you think that experience has shaped you in your theory, in your knowledge about education? Because you were a social worker in the public schools, which is a critical thing, and even on healthcare. How does that inform you? Your profession of social work inform you of those two issues.
So first of all, in our code of ethics, it's in there. 6.03 and 6.04 of the NASW Code of Ethics that all social workers are bound by talks about we have an ethical obligation to engage in policy work, to engage in the political process in some way. And it doesn't mean it has to be your main thing. It's kind of my main thing, but it doesn't have to be your main thing. But at some point, you have to get involved in this. And at the core, social workers solve problems. And we are very good at being problem solvers at both the micro level, which is think individuals and families, at the more meso level, think communities, and the macro level, which is society and policy work. And so we are very good. And all three of my degrees are in social work. So I've been able to see social work play out at all of these different levels. And so we are problem solvers at our core. And so that's what we need in DC right now in Congress, is somebody who is adept at solving problems. I have done this work my entire life. When I was in the school system, you speak to schools and healthcare. They really do go together, because I have never worked in a school. And my son, since living in North Carolina, starting in 2016, and he was in elementary school, has never lived in a school where there is a full-time nurse. And for some children, that is the only access to healthcare that they will get, right? Or at least that's affordable. And
Mhm.
so you might have one nurse who has to bounce from school to school to school,
Right.
and that doesn't help. And so I have had students who get diagnosed, and let's talk about Medicaid and as being not just for poor people who are lazy. I
Mhm.
have had families who are working, but
Mhm.
who are still making so little that they qualify for Medicaid, and they
Yes.
have children who have a diagnosed disability, and they need the psychotropic medication for that.
Yes.
Everything from ADHD, so
Right.
think and Adderall,
Mhm.
to depression, to anxiety. And so those medications are still prescription medication. So they get to see the clinical social worker. They get to go get their prescription written out by a psychiatrist. They get to go to the pharmacist and pay for that. And Medicaid covers so much of that cost that now their child gets care. And
Mhm.
young people are prone to accidents, falling off the monkey bars or whatever, or just getting sick. And
Mhm.
so you don't want to have to go to the emergency room and incur an expense that you know you'll never be able to pay back. You don't want to have to worry about the cost of like a child in a cast or something like that for some untold amount of time. Like all of that stuff is care. And there are people who are going to need this type of care their whole life because they are members of the disabled community. And we need to make sure that those funds are available to them through Medicaid and or the ACA. And so
Right.
those things do blend in the school environment. So I see the heaviness that kids come to the classroom with when they know that they had to move last night because they were couch surfing with a relative who just got tired of them being there. And so them and their parents had to pack up and leave in the middle of the night. I've had that. I've seen that happen with some of my clients. I see the heaviness and the weightiness of being in a school that's under resourced. I mean, there are students coming to my campus for college who have never gone on a field trip in K through 12. That exposure enlightens and it awakens and it opens up opportunity and creativity for children, and they're not getting access to that. So everything about what I know about social work, I've worked in a charter school in DC, which are different than the charter schools in North Carolina. They're not the same thing. But I worked in a charter school in DC that was specifically for children involved in the juvenile justice system. And so we were able to do all sorts of things to help them go from having a juvenile case file in the judicial system to a life of their dreams, whatever those dreams may be. And I know what's possible when we have good qualified and well compensated people in those buildings. And it's not just the teachers, it's the social workers as well, the paraprofessionals, the administrative staff. Like all of these people matter in school buildings and in communities more broadly. All of that has shaped how I intend to go to DC and solve problems there for those same people, but just at a larger level.
Mhm. Um, we got a comment. There are rich people whose children have special needs and therefore qualify for Medicaid. Wow, I hadn't heard that. Um, what is the racial makeup of your district, Dr. Hardy?
So, man, I really wish I'd have known. Next time, you guys send y'all's queries in advance so I can have data for you. I'm a nerd.
I didn't think, and see, that's the thing with the show being live. You never know what people are going to ask or anything, because I didn't think to ask that question.
You guys, like,
But you
really
don't have to be exact. You don't have to be exact.
is in some of these counties, they're largely African American, especially in that middle band, right? So your Sampson, Bladen, Columbus, Robinson is a middle band. There are 3 Native American or indigenous community tribes in my district. So you have
And
the
what are
Wakaman in like Sampson County, in like a Robinson, Columbus County area. In Sampson County, you have the Coharie, and of course in Robinson, more broadly and now federally recognized, you have the Lumbee tribe. So we have 3 tribal communities in this district who represent a very large portion. But there's a huge African American portion, and then a lot of the folks who are relocating from the upper northeastern part of the country are white And so like, but then if you look at like a Wilmington has a very interesting racial mix and racial dynamic, in part that is their history owing to the 1898 coup, the only successful coup in the history of this country, overthrowing a bunch of African American lawmakers. So if y'all don't know about that, go look that up. It's really, really important. And it does shape some of how Wilmington in particular still operates. But in Brunswick County, where there are a lot of wealthy folks coming down from the northeastern part, there's a lot of need. For example, Navassa is a Superfund site. So basically what that means is that the EPA has designated them a Superfund site because of this sort of toxicity in the land and the water. So think like creosote and dioxin, those things get into the water, they get into the land. And so
What
there are
county is this?
This is in Brunswick County.
Oh,
So the same county that has, beautiful beaches and all of that sort of stuff, you have folks who do not have access to clean water. Part of that is PFAS, which sort of runs through the whole of this region of the state. The forever chemicals that are in water that Kim Moores knows about and isn't doing enough about. And so there are people whose well water has been forever contaminated, who don't want to use water to spray their crops because those chemicals are in the water there. There have been some water purification systems put on like kitchen sinks in households in some spaces, but that doesn't, we still have dermal exposure, right? We still have to shower in that water. And so there are people in Grays Creek community, for example, right down the street from where I live in Cumberland, that have to drink bottled water still.
really?
And so it's just the environmental challenges here. They cut across all the racial and all the economic groups. And so some things will be, bespoke to a certain income, driven population, but water, clean soil, clean air, that affects every single one of us. And it's a real problem here about which David is doing nothing.
Wow. John Caldwell says, and he is from the state of Michigan, Dr. Hardy. He says that this is true. Now, look,
I'm a Buckeye.
I know you are, but look, I'm a Michigander and went to Michigan, so I won't hold. I won't hold it this time, John. I saw that for Ohio State, but see, that was grad school, so. That is true. You would be surprised about how many professional people have their kids on Medicaid. What?
And you know what? Let me say this.
He's treated some in his own practice. Right. I didn't know that.
I am not anti any of this. Hey, Katie. I love Katie. She's so great. She's so great. I am not suggesting that, that we should do anything except bolster access to Medicaid, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you qualify, okay, I want everyone who qualifies to have access to it. I want everybody who qualifies for it to be able to get it and make it affordable, because if these things get walked all the way back to the point where it's not tenable anymore economically for folks who rely on it, then that doesn't really harm the people that John is seeing in his practice, because they might have I won't say it doesn't harm them, but they might be able to weather that more because they have, some means about them.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that safety net should still be there, and it is there. We've just made it harder for it to catch people.
Right. Where is Winnebago? I don't know where Winnebago is. Where's that?
In my district. It is in my district.
And what county is that?
I want to say that's a Brunswick County thing, but Sean, you let me know. I'm pretty sure that is there.
Zachary wants to know, is Plymouth in your district?
That one doesn't sound familiar. I'd have to look, because I don't think that one is in there. But here's the thing, Zachary, it could have been, because they have changed this district 5 times.
Yeah, gerrymandering, Zachary.
Gerrymandering. It's so maybe today it isn't. Yesterday it was. And tomorrow it won't be. There's no telling. We
talked about that earlier, and Zachary too was in Detroit. Let's see.
Oh, Sean.
Go Blue.
Sean and I mess with each other all the time. Sean, how about that? Who's in there? Who won the battle this time, Sean? But who won the battle this time, Sean? Between Ohio State and Michigan. And we only play one game a year that matters. want against that little state up north. But I will say that I want to speak to this piece about like where spaces are in the district. I get voted on by people who live in the district, but I legislate for the entire country and the global community. The office of Congressperson is incredibly, incredibly serious.
Yes,
and we
it
need
is.
a serious person in there
Yes.
because this is something that where we make policy at the federal level, it affects everybody. So just because you might not be able to vote for me because you don't live in my district, please know that whatever decisions are made from the people sitting in Congress have an effect on everybody across
Yes,
the
it
country
does.
and across the world. So all people might not be my voters, but everybody is a constituent.
Give us your website where people can make contributions.
So you can visit KimberlyHardyForCongress.com. It's FOR. Some people do the number. It's the FOR, KimberlyHardyForCongress.com. And I want to talk about this donation piece of it, right? Investing in a campaign is not giving money to a candidate. It's investing in that candidate's prospects for winning that seat. And it's really important that we disaggregate those things. I've been telling folks that in our community in particular, we have been raised up to say, listen, you get that ballot and you cast that ballot. But that is all the way in November. What I need before then, what all of us need before then, is the funds necessary to make our message get out to as many people as possible, to allow me to get through the district as much as possible, and to allow us to take care of the staff that are so amazing. I could not do this without my amazing staff, my campaign manager, Olivia, my comms director, Rob. We just brought on a deputy campaign manager, Aman. We have a ton of volunteers who are helping, and you can help from wherever you are. You can phone bank from wherever you are. You can write postcards from wherever you are. And if you're local and you want to help out, then you can do my favorite thing, which is canvassing, door knocking, and talking to people right there in the communities that they live in, because that is the best way to engage with voters. So donations are amazing. You do not have to give. Please don't think that if you can't give me $500 today, then you can't help. That's not true. Could you do $50 every 2 weeks? Could you do $20 a month? You would be surprised how much those things add up. And again, nerdy professor, Black women candidates are the ones who get the least amount of campaign contributions. So all the other candidates out there who are raising tons of money, Black women are raising far and away less than that. And so we need all of the support that we can get, especially those of us who are saying, no, we're not taking corporate PAC money. The win isn't worth the soul that I would have to give up to take PAC money. So it really is a people-powered campaign.
Mm-hmm. Sean wants to know, how's your ground game?
So my favorite thing in the world is the ground game, but we were not on the ballot for the primary. I was the only Democrat in North Carolina trying to flip a congressional seat who did not have a primary challenger. So I've been the Democratic nominee for this seat since December. But in March, on March 3rd, is when we had the primary. So we used that time to do things like fundraising and infrastructure building and mapping out the plan, because we did not want folks to go, hey, I went to go vote for you and your name wasn't on my ballot. So in order to allay any confusion, we did a lot of internal work. In late April and early May is when we're really going to start getting out there and knocking on doors. And I am so excited about that part because, you know, social work has a famous motto, you start where the client is. And so for me, it's you start where the constituent is. I want to go into neighborhoods, go into communities and meet people and see what the conditions are. And I take notes on these things to know what I need to attend to when I get to DC in January.
Zach wants to know, how's your social media game?
Well, so we are going to listen. My team is very good at social media. They're way better at it than I am, but they're getting me there. And so, we're doing a really great job with that. We just brought on my dear friend Elijah, who was ironically third vice chair of the North Carolina Democratic
Party. Elijah.
You know Elijah
out of Durham, yeah. Bull City.
And so Elijah is a whiz at social media. And so my existing team has been great about it. We're bringing him in because it's time for a fresh new take on how we're going to be doing social media. One of the things we're going to do that I'm really excited about are digital debates against David, because David won't debate me. He just won't do it. He's not done it with anyone.
He can't. He won't win. That's why
He won't win.
he won't
He
win.
can't answer y'all's
He
questions.
wants to
like
stay
that.
under the radar and not say anything. Him and Ted Budd.
Him and Ted
Ted
Budd.
Budd.
And so
Yeah.
he's not going to show up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take things that he has said, and I will do direct-to-camera videos debating how all the different ways that that's wrong or how harmful it's been, not the least of which was when it was like the early days of this Iran war. And we really oughtn't call it a war per se, because there has been no constitutional approval for us to be in war. And so that declaration of war needs to come from Congress, but that is the language that Donald Trump uses. And I believe that words matter. And so I'm holding him to account for his own words. He called it a war. This is where we are. But, and see, that just got me all off my square, because I was just thinking about the need to reform the AUMF, or the authorized use of military force. That's how he gets around having to go to Congress to do things like invade Iran and stuff like that. But nevertheless, our social media game is great. We're going to do these digital debates. And I remember now, it was like the third day or so of this war. We had lost 140 little girls in Iran.
Yes.
That had absolutely nothing to do with nuclear energy. And at that point, we had lost 3 U.S. service members. And when the local media in Wilmington reached out to David's office for some sort of comment on the war, his direct quote was, "We're not interested in that right now. We're not interested in that right now."
Yeah. So we're
Right.
we're not interested in him ever
And
winning.
so we're not interested in him.
Ever. Ever. Okay.
Not ever.
Ever. Well, listen, our time has that hour flew by very quickly.
Oh. Oh my God, it is. We're overtime. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
So I left it up on the screen. Kimberly Hardy for Congress.com. Can read all about her. You can and make a donation if you will. Sign up for phone banking, whatever it is that you'd like to do to help her win this race and turn her District 7 in North Carolina blue from red. And you're in that I-95 corridor, right? It's
That's
a big,
right. Y'all can come right on down.
yeah.
Come
Okay.
celebrate the victory with us in November. And if you
Yes.
guys are like watching Pam and subscribe to her show, I'm doing a plug for you, Pam. You didn't authorize this. I'm doing it anyway. Y'all need to follow this sister, because she is doing, we can't trust legacy media in the way that we used to be able to, which is such a shame.
Yeah. And it
but
breaks my heart.
like yours that are elevating really important issues and people. And I'm so grateful that you do this work. And I'm humbled that you've had me on twice now. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we're gonna wave off good night, and best of luck to you. One day we're gonna actually meet in person soon.
Yes,
Sometime.
yes. I feel like we're old friends already. So now we
Right.
just have to do it. Maybe I'll meet you somewhere in Raleigh, Durham.
Right. All right. Well, good night, everyone, and thank you for all of your comments. Thank you. Good night.